Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Hit that like button, leave a positive comment, or hit subscribe to get alerted when new episodes drop. All of this will help keep the project going. Thank you for your support and enjoy the episode. This is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And my guest today is Katie Collins-Ihrke, who is the executive director with the ARC of Howard County, also a top 100 women from the Daily Record, and was also named a leading women 40 under 40 from the Daily Record. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Pleased to be on here with you.
I am excited to get into this. I'm excited to learn about the ARC of Howard County and obviously your journey and background in getting there. We've had some other folks on from different sorts of, not necessarily similar organizations, but more in kind of the service-oriented nonprofit world. So I'm excited to get into it with you. So let's start there, and then we'll go backwards. Just share a little bit about what the ARC of Howard County does and your role there.
Sure. So the ARC of Howard County is part of the nation's largest grassroots movement on behalf and in partnership with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So those are people with disabilities. They get them prior to age 21. They're chronic, lifelong, and they're going to require support, meaning it's not going to get better. So often we see people with things like Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy. Those are some examples of the people with disabilities that we support, some of the diagnoses that they have. And then our job is really to make sure that people have lives of their choosing and that they get to do all the things that any other person gets to do. So, decide where to live, who to live with, what to do for a job, what to do for your free time. And of course, when it comes to working with this population, there's still a lot of barriers to people achieving the life that they want. So then we're also trying to be experts at barrier removal and making it so that we remove the attitudinal and the architectural barriers for people with disabilities to have full community inclusion. And so as the executive director, I am in charge of the day-to-day operations, and I report, just like many nonprofits, report to a volunteer board of directors. And I just, we are working on improving our service delivery, improving the lives of those we support, and really giving back to our community.
I love this, and I love this this focus. I actually sit on the board for service coordination, so I don't know if you're familiar with them, but similar, yeah. So fully understand what you guys do in such important and meaningful work. So let's get in our time machine and go back a little bit. What was Katie like as a kid? Like, where'd you grow up? Only child, siblings?
Yeah. So I mainly grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I spent 13 of my formative years there. With an older brother and eventually a younger sister. So I have a brother that's 2 years older than me and a sister who's 12 years younger than me. So I was a younger child, but then I was a middle child. So I've experienced the best of both of those worlds. And I think as a child, I have always been really interested in helping others. I have a servant heart. I want to serve, people and help people feel like they belong. And I think that's why the job that I have fallen into is what it is, because it does fit kind of some of my personality traits from when I was a child.
When you were younger, did you think in terms of, when I get older, when I grow up, I want to do X? And if so, what was that X?
Well, so it's kind of funny. I was always very creative in what I wanted to do. I can remember at one point, I wanted to be a hairdresser and teach karate. So I don't know how that was going to work for me, but as a young child, that was kind of my dream. Of course, as I got older, it kind of changed. I thought in high school, maybe I would be a teacher. And I tried a day of that in a kindergarten classroom. And I decided that I appreciate teachers a lot, and that was not something that I thought would fit me well. So, and then, went to college, and then things always change when you, are younger. And so that was the beginning of the end.
Where did you go to school and what did you study there?
Well, so for my undergraduate degree, I went to Saginaw Valley State University in Michigan, Saginaw, Michigan. I studied psychology. And then I decided to go to work for a while because I didn't know quite what I wanted to do. And so then I decided to enroll in graduate school. And I did that throughout my early stages of my career. And I have a master's in nonprofit and association management, as well as an MBA, master's in business administration. So
you studied in college, didn't have a necessarily idea of what you were interested in doing. Like psychology was interesting to you, got some follow-up degrees after that. When you finished your undergrad, where did you go? Like, what was your first job out of school?
I was actually a direct support professional. I worked with 2 children with autism in their home. They were brothers. And I spent, 40 hours a week for about 2 years with them. And that, was really that. And growing up with an aunt with cerebral palsy were really kind of very foundational for me. And I realized that the disability field was something that was personally important to me, and something that I thought I could contribute to. And so that's the direction I took.
And did you, it's interesting because I think about this a lot for people that are, I guess anywhere in their career, but especially people that are earlier in their career. Like, I don't know if growing up, I fully understood executive director. Like I always, and this very well might be just my ignorance, by the way, but I always kind of felt like in the nonprofit world that there was just like, I just thought volunteer, right? And obviously, eventually you learn that there's an entire operation behind these things that really, really take effort to keep them running. At what point in your career did you think, or did you ever, let me back up. Was there a point in your career when you thought, I want to be an executive director, or I want to run something like this? Or did that just kind of organically develop?
No, I actually very clearly remember it. I was in my second job out of college. So I had been working, doing direct support. And then I had to move because I followed my husband here to Maryland. And I needed a job. And so I started looking for a job. And I was able to get a job at another chapter of the ARC in Prince George's County. And I really appreciated at that point all the things that the executive director did. And I was like, I think I want to do that. Like, I think I want to be that person. And so that's when I started looking into graduate school. Like, what kinds of things would I need to be that person? And, in the first, before I became an executive director the first time, I had really hopped around quite a bit. But I will say I got experience in all of the things. So like did fundraising. So I knew a little bit about that. I did programmatic work. So I knew a little bit of that. I did advocacy. So I knew a little bit of that. And it kind of just made sense that, I did this, and this, and that kind of is some of what an executive director does. So I'm like building my skill set. And before I came to the ARC of Howard County, I ran a much smaller nonprofit. I went from like a little puddle to a giant ocean with this. And I was there for almost 8 years. But that was like my first, like, I was in the fake it till you make it kind of place. Like I was never an executive director before. I knew kind of what they did because I did some schooling around it. And I watched people do it, but really it was like, I'm just going to jump in and try to do this thing. So, it is something that I kind of a goal I set for myself. But it's gone, I've reached far higher heights than I ever thought that I would have.
Mm-hmm. I heard this, I have a daughter and she's a huge Taylor Swift fan. And yeah, A daughter or a Taylor Swift fan?
Both.
Both. Yeah. I feel like they go hand in hand most of the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm big on like quotes, and I heard this quote, and it was a Taylor Swift quote that I was talking about with my daughter, but it was your dream, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it was basically like your dreams get bigger as you start to reach them. You're right. And I think about that a lot. So just tied it to what you were saying, it's almost like, hey, I knew I wanted to, if I'm paraphrasing what you said, I knew I wanted to do something, but I kind of like started to get the skill set and the confidence to do it. And then once I was meeting each of those things, then it was like, okay, now I can do the next thing and the next thing. And then kind of ultimately take that leap.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Meaning, was that an easy transition for you? Like moving into a role where you were responsible for, I mean, really the whole show. Was that nerve-wracking for you? Was that like, no, I've got this? Like, what was your confidence level moving into that? And did you have any imposter syndrome?
Oh my gosh. So I think going into it, I definitely had, I mean, I still have every day imposter syndrome, right? Like, especially when I went into that first ED job, I was like, all right, so I've obviously tricked them. I've obviously put on a really good show, and now it's come time to deliver. And I really have to like figure out how to do this because I've never done it before, right? Like, and it's kind of like a leap of faith with yourself. Like, okay, I think I have everything that I need in my head, and I think I can do this because I've done similar things, and just really getting in there. But I will say that imposter syndrome creeps up all the time. Like it's a thing, and it's something that I've really had to work through. Reminding myself that I belong at the table. There's a seat at the table for me because I belong, and that sometimes just showing up is half the battle. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I always jump into everything feet first. I'm fully submerged. And I don't know if there's a better way to do it, but that has definitely helped me succeed.
What would you say were some of the traits that you learned as a child that you've carried through with you today? And who taught those to you?
Well, my parents were really big forces in my life. I would say that my mom definitely lent to me her the ability to seek justice for people who either were blatantly wronged or just were marginalized because of some other reason, whether that be their skin color or their sex or their disability status or their ethnicity. So, my mom was very much into, that there was a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quote that said, the arc of the universe bends towards justice. And I think reminding ourselves of that at times reminds us that we just need to keep going. I think my dad really instilled in me the sense of that most people are good people, and you really need to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I still do. And occasionally it gets me into trouble. But I still think that's a good way to go through life, to assume good intent, and to try to just work through that. But those are two traits that I really have carried with me my entire life that have been important. And lastly, and I think this was probably both of my parents, is integrity. It's doing the right thing, meaning what you say, making sure that you're impeccable with your word. When you say something's going to happen, it's going to happen. And that's really important to me. I never want to say something's going to happen and then I can't make it happen. So I always try to be very careful with what I promise to people or what I say, because I want to be able to deliver on that.
Mm-hmm. I love that integrity one is such a big thing for me, and doing the same, doing the right thing and true to yourself, even when nobody's watching, is such an important trait. So that really resonates with me. What for you, when you if somebody is earlier in their career, right? So there's a variety of people that listen to this podcast, different career transitions, people that are earlier in their career. We get a bunch of different demographics, and people might write in afterwards after hearing an episode and say, hey, that really resonated with me, right? So speak to the person who is a recent graduate who says, I know that I want to do something in the service industry, but I don't my heart leads me to something service oriented, but I don't know what to do. What's the intersection of practicality between service and money, right? Being able to survive. And just someone who's kind of early getting started. What would you tell them?
I would say that sometimes, as is life, you need to find where you fit. And not every job is meant for every person. And just because a job's not meant for you doesn't mean you're not a capable, competent adult. And I think that can be hard when you're going into it because we have such a mentality of I'm going to get in trouble or I'm going to be graded. I'm going to get a bad, we have these ideas about when something's not working or something doesn't fit, that we are somehow wrong or deficient. But really, I think it is finding that fit. So what I would encourage people is if you're looking for a career in services, it's human services, try to find some piece of that interests you. So here at the ARC, we have a lot of jobs that are people who we provide direct support professionals to people so that people can go out in the community and they can explore things and they can get help at their job if they need it. And so there's a lot of different things you can do, but identify something that's a passion for you. I have always found that if you're working for a cause you believe in, you'll work harder. So find something that you believe in. Find something that excites you, that makes you feel like you can make a difference. I think contributing to our community is the most important thing you can do as a human being. And there's so many ways to do that. And our profession is just one of those ways. So if human services or the service industry doesn't work out, just know there's other ways to contribute to your community. And, you brought up one of them, board service is an excellent way to contribute to your community. That volunteer service is really important to make sure that our organizations, our nonprofit organizations, are healthy.
Mm-hmm. What in the, this is a funny question to ask somebody. I don't know if I ever asked it. How hard do you work?
It depends. It ebbs and flows, right? Some days it's long hours, but not a lot gets accomplished. Mm-hmm. I really, try to be very diligent about making sure I have enough time set aside to do the actual work. Because sometimes in my role, many of my days are meeting. So trying to find that time. And I try not to quantify my work. I don't count the hours. I just do what needs to do to get done. But I have found that I've been able in this job, even with all of the work demands, I've found some way to have somewhat of a work-life balance because I do have 2 children. And so that's really important to me.
That is, I appreciate you answering that. And I want to, the reason I asked it that way is because I know a handful of executive directors or presidents or people that oversee nonprofits, and it is a tremendous amount of mental energy, not to mention physical energy of the hours. And I feel like you're probably a little modest in even how you answered it. And really just to, it's the organ, I always think about this with nonprofits, like there's an entire engine behind that it takes to make and deliver the work and services and the things that the ARC of Howard County does. And everyone that I've met, and I'm sure that you're no different, even though we're just getting to know each other, it's a tremendous amount of work that, to your point, meetings, coordination, just a series of things that I don't know people always outside of the nonprofit world necessarily recognize that just because it's nonprofit doesn't mean that it's it's a lighter load. In fact, I would argue usually it can even be a heavier one than what you might see in some for-profit businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're probably right. I do. I do think that there are things that are part of this job that are really very difficult. And I think the biggest one for me is, we, as an executive director, I'm not only responsible for the people we support, but I'm responsible for the employees and making sure that the needs of both of those are met. And sometimes the needs can conflict, or we won't have the resources to meet the needs. And so that's where it gets hard. And I think, to your point, I do think that there's a definite craft to be an executive director, because it's not just running a business. It's also running a business and convincing people that your business is important and that they should give you money for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And for just goodwill, like, you're not going to get a product out of this. You're going to get, your community's going to be better off. So I do think that there is a special skill set there. But, I think that with these jobs, they are hard jobs, but there's also so many good points of the day and so many things when you're like, okay, like, yes, this makes a difference for people. We recently here were able to expand our health insurance offerings from one carrier to 3 different carriers. And so our employees now have the same benefits as state employees. And that was just such an amazing feeling to be able to deliver that to people so that they could get their healthcare needs met in the way they wanted them met. And, be able to really be cared for, and so, we're caring for the people we support. We're also caring for our staff, and that's a lot. It weighs heavily at times. But just remembering that the bigger picture is that, and I try to remember this for myself, that, like, my job is to help contribute to our community and to make a positive impact. And every day that I come into the office, I feel like I'm doing that. Even if some days it's, reading contracts and writing reports, like, it still is a good job. It's a good place to be.
I can see, as you were talking about the good parts of the job and what you do, I could literally see your face like light up as you were talking about it, which is like, it's always just inspirational for me to see. I love when people not only are passionate about what they do, but obviously passionate about something that, to your point, I'm such a big believer also in just service and contributing and contributing to the community. And so I just, that warmed my heart. And I just wanted to acknowledge that for you. Talk a little bit about the integration. You mentioned it earlier that you have 2 daughters. Talk a little bit, if you will, about your experience or just integration between, work life, right? Do you have mom guilt? How do you get your kids aware of what you do and kind of teach the values to them about service? And just anywhere that you want to take kind of the balance or the integration of work and home.
Yeah. So I actually have a son and a daughter.
So my fault.
No, it's great. But I do think, I try to model for my kids that, like, I came from a family where your job wasn't just your job. Like, it wasn't just the place you went. It was part of your identity. And I've carried that with me. So, like, work is very important to who I am. It's a part of me, a big part of me. And so I've tried to instill in my children that, you should work hard, and you should work, and you should do something that matters. Either matters to you, matters to your community. Just do something. And I've been fortunate, to have workplaces where I've been able to kind of introduce my children. I took 2 weeks off after having my daughter and just brought her into the office with me. So, like, she was, with me for the first 3 months of her life. I had a pack and play in my office, and it was, I'd bring her to meetings. It was, it was good. And I had a board that supported me, and it was lovely. The staff were wonderful. It was a great place to be. And so I've been able to find, those little moments where I can kind of combine be a mom and an executive director. I like having my kids around, seeing the work that I do, because I want them to see people who aren't like them, and recognize that just because someone's not like you doesn't mean they don't have a place, and that, there are opportunities for us as humans to invite people to the table. If we're fortunate to have a long table, let's invite others to it to make them, part of our community, because everything is better when we work together and collaborate and do things as a whole. So yeah, I think just trying to be a role model for my children and for my daughter especially. I was raised by a strong woman, and I think, strong women raise strong women. And I'm really trying to do that. I'm trying to remind her not to apologize for everything, and that saying no is absolutely okay. And it's also okay to disappoint people. Like that's been a lesson I've been working on for a while. Like, disappointing people is okay sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think any opportunity that I've had has been worthwhile with my children and my work.
Has there been times where you need to prioritize work over, and not prioritize obviously in the long run, right? But work over kids. Do you ever have any guilt about that? Like now we're speaking to the audience of people who are moms or dads and trying to balance, I've got a demanding job and I also need to be there, obviously for my family, and just kind of the mental game that sometimes we might play with ourselves about guilt or prioritizing one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, there's guilt, I think. I can't talk for being a father, but as a mother, I experience guilt whether I'm at work or I'm at home. It doesn't matter.
Just always on the shoulder, no
right.
matter where.
You could always be doing better, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, am I doing it the right way? Am I screwing it up? And years ago, I had someone say to me, Katie, moms that are screwing it up don't ask themselves if they're screwing it up. So just because you have that level of consciousness that you might be screwing it up, you're probably doing okay. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And, there are times, there have been times, late nights where I don't get to, kiss my kids goodnight. That's hard. And, going, having to work on some weekends, or, I even had major guilt when I had just had my son and I was working, a full-time job and going to graduate school nights and weekends. I don't even really remember the first couple years of his life. And that's, I feel a lot of guilt about that. But in the same sense, he probably didn't remember. And if he did remember, he'd see that I was working hard to achieve something. And that is, groundwork that I want to lay for him,
Mm-hmm. I love that. Beautifully put. I think there is something. I'm a mom of two girls, and I think there is something to be said for setting an example of whatever it is, right? Like your path happens to be your path, right? Another parent's path could be, a stay-at-home mom, or a different, or work from home mom, or a different path. But I think I love the idea of just showing your children, this is my path and I'm doing that, and just how inspirational is that, I would imagine, for a kid to, and not that they realize it yet. How old are your kids?
6 and 14.
Okay. So so they're probably mine are 12 and 8. They're probably in the land of not fully appreciating it. But my hope is that, when they're adults, that they'll look back and say, hey, mom followed her dreams and still always prioritized us, right? And like, what a thing to do. It's like, that's what I'm hoping will be one of the things that's kind of left with them. And it sounds like similar to you, that they're going to see you doing these things, and that they're going to be left with, moms did what was true to her and what was important to her, but also prioritized us, obviously.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. I really hope, it's interesting raising children, because I know how I viewed my parents as a child and how I viewed my parents as an adult. And it's definitely a shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping he still, and my daughter, when they get older, I'm hoping they do think that way.
Well, no, that's the hard thing about parenting. I think this all the time. It's like we plant these seeds And like, and obviously there's some steps along the way that you can kind of see how things are evolving. But I just think, I don't know, like 20 years from now, we'll see if it worked.
Right. Right. So see if I screwed it all up. I don't know.
Right. What advice or what would you tell your younger self?
I think that I have evolved from someone who is always willing to speak their mind to someone who waits to speak their mind until they realize it can make an impact. I've gotten quiet about a lot of things. I'm not sharing, the cards in my hand. I'm not sharing that anymore. So I think, for me, it really, the idea is like you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And so sometimes you need to, I don't want to say not share an opinion when it's important, because I definitely think if you have an opinion and it's important to the conversation, you need to share it. But sometimes it's not important. Sometimes you just sit back and pick your battles. Pick what things you're going to really focus on. I think, there's a lot of things in the world that can make someone upset, and so you have to decide what things are going to be worth your while. And so that's something that I've had to learn. And what I've noticed is upsetting things happen, but I get over them because I've done it before. Like, I think that experience helps you. So, when something upsets you, it's only going to upset you for a little while. You're going to be feeling better in a few days. And maybe you'll even forget about what upset you in the first place. So I think also just being patient with yourself, something feels a certain way at this moment, but it won't feel that way forever. And so I think those are two things that I would tell my younger self. And I don't know. I also don't know is maybe that opinionated person who had something to say about things, who was upset about things, maybe that's how I got here. I don't know. Maybe that was part of my path. So I also don't want to discredit that. But those would be two kind of things that I would say, maybe younger Katie would have helped her to know that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How would when you let me think how to ask this. What would be your so you talked a little bit earlier about some of the really bright spots in your job and some of the things that are a little bit more challenging or difficult. But just to kind of revisit that and kind of put a finer point on it, what are the best parts of your job?
Well, I think being able to say that the actions of our team here made a direct impact to someone's life in a positive way. So whether that is getting a new job or we just had two people from one of our programs graduate with these certificates from Howard Community College, those are wonderful things that happen, and that makes it all worth it. I think, helping people achieve what they want to, the people we support, but also I think part of the role in being where I am is also providing opportunities for the staff, right? And helping to find them grow and find them learn new things. And it's always great when you see staff that are able to master a new skill or, figure out a new way to do things. And I love seeing people learn and develop. And so, we've been working very hard to try to have a pathway for people so they can say, if I want this job up here, how do I get there?
So how important in your journey, in your experience, has work ethic been?
Essential. I'm very driven to achieving results and getting things done. And so the work ethic has been a big part of that. And as I said earlier, I come from a family of worker bees. My dad retired from a corporate job and then started teaching at the university and doing consulting work. And he did that up until 2 days before he passed away. So I say that to say that that it's very much ingrained in me. And it's incredibly meaningful that the work ethic from both of my parents, I feel like I have, and it is essential to doing the work that we do because in my job, in my job, it's really important for me to not only do the work, but show people how to do the work, And so if people see you with a good work ethic, then they're going to have fun. And I also do think that there's a caveat to the work ethic in which there are some people who have too much of a work ethic and not enough of a free time, family time, other interest time. So I do think you have to be careful there because it is definitely a balance. But yeah, that work ethic, the ability to keep going until the job is done is absolutely essential.
What traits do you look for in whether you're hiring somebody new, current staff, but I don't know if partners or other organizations that you would work with, if that applies in your job or not. But what traits do you look for as, hey, these are people that I want to engage with from a work perspective?
Yeah, so I think top of the list is enthusiasm and passion. Nothing can replace that, by the way. Nothing can replace your enthusiasm and passion for the work. And I think your work is so much better when you do have that enthusiasm and passion. I also think, as I spoke of before, integrity is super important. Being very intentional with how you spend your time and making sure that you're doing the right thing even when no one's looking. That's huge. The growth mindset, I don't know if that is a term for adults. I have heard it in children, definitely, and I've worked with my kids on it. But, having people understand that like they can always be better and taking some of the failures and some of the mistakes you made and using that as learning tools. I've done a lot of things and failed at a lot of things. But you don't know what things are going to be successful when you start them, right? So you're going to have to fail at some things to be successful. And so using that failure as stepping stones to either build a better way to do it or undo the way you did it before, I think is so important. And lastly, I would say, just the ability to show up and be ready, ready for whatever. Able to roll with the punches. I love people who are very, flexible, like we're going to shift focus. That's really important. But those are probably, lastly, sense of humor. Yes. I think when you work in human services, and there's probably some other fields that are the same, but definitely my experience has been if you don't laugh, you cry. And so trying to find humor in the things that you do is so important. And I think it is good for team cohesion as well.
I love everything that you just said there, and the growth mindset. Like you're speaking my love languages here. It's like the growth mindset piece, I think, is so important. And I do think it holds true for adults too, right? Like I think about that a lot. It's not like, okay, I'm 18 and now all of a sudden like I'm learning things every single day. And so I love that growth mindset versus fixed mindset, I think is such an important thing. And as people, I think it makes life actually easier if you have that growth mindset. So I love that. All right, I have one more question before we get to rapid fire, which rapid fire is unrelated to anything that we've talked about. So before I get to my final question, is there anything that you'd like to add or highlight or anything or cover that we haven't yet talked about?
I don't think so.
Okay, not a trick question. Most people don't have anything additional.
I was trying to think, but no, I don't think so.
Okay. So last question before I get to rapid fire. How do you define success?
So I think success, I think it's as easy as finding where you belong. and finding something that you enjoy doing. And in terms of work, I think overall, it's just success is being okay with where you are. Knowing, that you've worked hard to get somewhere, I think. And then hopefully you've been successful in doing that. I'm not going to pretend that success is easy for everyone. And for some of us, it's easier because we haven't had a lot other systemic barriers in place. But I think finding your place, finding the place where you can contribute the most. And, there's a place for happiness here too. Like, what's success without happiness? What's success without, having, I don't know. I think about, having a family to celebrate with you. That's really important. Success isn't something that should be done alone, nor is it something that's done alone, right? We're all very codependent on each other to get things done. So yeah, success, finding where you fit.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well said. Well said. All right. Before I get to rapid fire, if people are interested in learning more about the ARC or reaching out to you directly, just in general, whatever you're comfortable with, but what's the best way for people to kind of learn more or get in touch?
So we do have a website. It's www.archhoward, that's ARC Howard.org. We have information, kind of general information about our services, as well as contact information for me and all of our other leadership staff. We also have a pretty active Facebook page. So look us up on Facebook. That's kind of where we show a lot of the things that we're doing, pictures of the people we support, successes of our staff as well. So we try to keep that pretty active. But I'd also just invite anyone who wants to talk about the ARC of Howard County to reach out to me. I'd be happy to go to coffee or lunch and just talk more about that. And especially if there's ways that we can collaborate or work together. There's no other way to do things in this world. We don't have enough resources. So we're going to have to figure out how to do it together.
Perfect.
I would encourage that.
Perfect. And we will we'll link that up on the show notes also for anyone out there that wants to connect.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So now rapid fire, unrelated to anything that we've talked about, just first things that comes to mind, 6 or 7 questions.
Okay.
Brick or stone?
Stone. I don't know why.
Out to dinner, cook at home?
Cook at home.
East Coast, West Coast?
East Coast.
Sing or dance?
Both.
Astronaut or deep sea diver?
Oh, those are both equally scary. I'm going to go with astronaut.
Okay. All right. Last one. Sun or moon?
Sun.
All right. Perfect. Katie, thanks so much for the time. I really enjoyed talking with you and learning more about your story and the meaningful work that the ARC is doing. And just, thank you. And thank you to the organization.
Thank you, Lauren. This has been just such a delight talking to you. And I hope we get to meet again soon.
Yes, likewise. Likewise. This is, for the listeners out there, this is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And again, my guest today is Katie Collins-Ihrke, and we will see you next time.
Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.